everyone, and welcome to card number 5. So I'm starting off with sentiments from my All About Dad set, and I inked it up with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm using CC Designs sand cardstock, and then just a piece of tape to tape the spellbinders. I'm using the Mega Curved Rectangle die, and then ran that through my Big Shot so it's die cut. And then for the dad, I wanted it on a separate piece of cardstock because I wanted it to stand out a little more. So I grabbed some brushed silver cardstock from my stash and then used the embossing buddy on it to keep any of the embossing powder from adhering to the cardstock. And then I'm inking up that stamp with the Brilliance Graphite Black ink because it's pigment ink, so it takes longer to dry. And then I'm just using clear embossing powder. And if you guys have watched any of my videos, you know I don't like using black embossing powder. It does save you on a step, but it's just a pain in the butt to use, and it makes such a mess. I don't like black embossing powder, so I prefer stamping the image in black and then embossing it with clear. That's just what I prefer. So yeah, once I got that on there, used my heat tool to melt all the embossing powder. And then I'm using an oval die this time, and then same thing, just using some tape to keep the die in place when I run it through my Big Shot so that the die doesn't shift. And you can see I've kind of got what I want going on here. And then I'm just using some wood grain pattern paper. This stuff is from the Cosmo Cricut. This was from their Mr. Campy line that was retired. It was discontinued a while ago, but you can use like a wood grain stamp, or there's tons of wood grain everything out now because it's, you know, so trendy. So I just grabbed what I had and I cut it into strips and then sponged all the edges with Memento Rich Cocoa ink. And then I'm just adhering the strips randomly, like no pattern in mind. I kind of want them a little off center, a little bit on an angle. And then I had also sponged everything else, like the card front and the die cut pieces. I sponged everything. Once I start sponging something, I sponge everything. So yeah, once I got that done, I die cut these little tools using the My Favorite Things Tool Charms dies. So I die cut them twice, once with the silver cardstock and then once with brown. I sponged all the silver again so that everything is kind of matchy and a little bit more distressed. And then the brown pieces, I just cut, selectively cut some of the different areas and then glued them over the silver so they look more like actual tools. So really simple, super easy. So I got those how I wanted it, and then it's just a matter of adhering everything to the card front. And I'm sorry, I'm totally off camera here. My desk was a disaster as I was filming this. And I didn't realize until after I was done filming and starting to edit that, yeah, I was totally had the camera pointed at the wrong spot. But lesson learned, I will have my desk a little more cleaner next time and hopefully pay a little bit more attention when I film. So anyway, I used dimensionals for the piece that has Dad stamped on it and popped that up a little bit. And then for the little tools, I decided to have them kind of hanging off the bottom of the main sentiment panel. So I just kind of lined them up and then just used black mini brads to attach them to the card so that they look like they're hanging there. It's just a fun little touch. And then I grabbed some of these like screw head style brads from my stash. I think mine were by Karen Foster. I've linked to 2 different kinds in with the rest of my supplies. They're pretty much all the same thing, but I've had these for years and I thought they'd be perfect for a card like this, so I actually pulled them out and used them. So my dilemma was getting them centered properly on the card. I was using the 4 corners because since I didn't adhere the pattern paper in any sort of like even way, I wanted to make sure the brads at least lined up, so I just used my guide. This was from Stampin' Up! And I think it's retired now, but you can use whatever works for you. But yeah, got those in place, so then the card front is done. So just add my ATG adhesive, and I'm going to adhere that to the card itself, which is just the same dark brown cardstock I used for the tools. And then once I've got the card front done, it's time to go into the inside. So I cut just another piece of the wood grain pattern paper to go on the inside, and then I die cut another piece of the sand cardstock with a larger one of the curved rectangle dies, and of course sponge the edges of everything. So once I've got that done, I'm going to do another sentiment and just the Happy Father's Day from the All About Dad set, and this time using my stamp positioner so I can get it lined up perfectly because I want to do it on just a strip of the silver cardstock. So I'm just using the bottom of the scrap I've got since it's a straight edge, and then using my stamp positioner to line it up so it's centered. And then again, just using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, stamping that, and then I'm going to trim it out. And just like everything else, eventually I'm going to sponge it. I wasn't sure yet how I was going to adhere it to the inside, where I was going to put it. I was just kind of fiddling back and forth with the layout on the inside because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then I got the idea to add more of those little tools to the inside. So I die cut and glued those together just like I did on the front, and that will finish off the inside of the card. So I'm just going to adhere down the sand panel for the place to write a message. I had sponged the silver cardstock just like on the front, so it's a little bit distressed. And then just use scissors to cut off the pieces that are hanging over. And then I'm just going to use my Tombow Mono Multi Glue again to adhere the little tools, and that will finish off the inside of the card. So I hope you guys have been enjoying this little series so far. As always, there will be a link below this video with a link to my blog post, and in the blog post I'll have links to all the supplies I used, or at least everything that I can link to. The only thing I can't is just this pattern, this wood grain pattern paper. It's the only thing I think that's expired or discontinued, sorry. Everything else should still be available. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!